Okay, so this is going to be a video about completing the square. And what basically completing the square is a way of solving quadratic functions a little bit easier. Okay, so the first thing you need to do with completing the squares, you need to understand how perfect squares work. So I have this perfect square right here where it's x plus m squared. So that's our perfect square. If you double distribute this, you'd end up with x squared plus 2mx plus m squared. Now the great thing about showing it out like this is that this b term, this 2m, it shows the relationship between b and c when there's a perfect square. So in this case, this b is equal to 2m and the c is equal to m squared. That happens for every single perfect square. So it shows how b is related to c. And another way of writing it would be, if you just take this b term and divide it by 2 and square it, you end up getting the c term. So if you took 2m, divided it by 2 and squared it, you would get the c term, which is m squared. Now, what does this allow us to do? Well, if you have a problem and you want to solve it a little bit easier, you can use the square root property to do this. So I have an example right here to show you. So say we have x plus m squared equals some number. All you would have to do, rather than keeping it in this form, if you turn it into this form, you can just take the square root of both sides, and then you'd be able to solve for x a little bit easier. So you have x plus m on this side, plus or minus at square root of n. Then you're going to subtract m from both sides, and then you end up with negative m plus or minus square root of n. Now, I don't use any numbers in this example, so I'm just kind of trying to keep it as abstract as possible. If you want to use this to try to solve some of the problems, you can. If not, the next video is actually going to show you some worked out examples of how to use completing the square to solve for x in a quadratic function. So if you have any questions about this, let me know.